Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Lakeport City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Matina. Here. Councilmember Parlett.
Here.
Councilmember Price.
Here.
Pro Tem Disney.
Here.
And Mayor Costa.
Here. Thank you, Kelly. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of a number of community members in the room. I want to tell you how much it just warms our heart to see you here. The council super appreciates you being here, and we look forward to what you're bringing, your ideas, your thoughts, what you have to share tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time. To the people in the room and anyone joining us online, thank you. So just a couple of notes about meeting structure. There are a number of times throughout the meeting when the public can provide information and comment. So we have one public comment time for anything not on the agenda. And then for every agenda item, there is opportunity for the public to comment. If you're in the room, we're going to ask you to please come forward to the microphone so that we can all hear you. And if you don't mind, we'd love to hear you state your name so we know who's visiting us tonight. For those joining online, you can use the raise hand function, and we will unmute your microphone will be unmuted so that you can share with us. Thank you so much. So next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a special guest going to do that for us tonight. We have Jason Hanover. And are you doing it alone, Jason? All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't run off. I have something. I know you have brought two of your kids, and you've got more at home. I just want to give you these little bag stickers. If you have stickers, they can all go home in. Thank you so much. So next item, the acceptance of the agenda and urgency items. Do we have any urgency items this morning?
We do
this
not.
evening?
No.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as posted?
Madam Mayor, I'll move to accept the agenda as posted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The item carries. So next is the consent agenda. The following consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the council at one time without any discussion. However, any council member may request that any item be removed from the consent agenda for discussion under the regular agenda. Removed items will be considered following the consent calendar portion of this agenda. This evening's consent agenda contains the following items. A, ordinances, waive reading, except by title of any ordinances under consideration at this meeting for either introduction or passage per Government Code Section 36934. B, approve the minutes of the City Council regular meetings of January 21, 2025 and February 4, 2025. C, approve application 2025-007 with staff recommendations for the Every 15 Minutes event. D, approve application 2025-010 with staff recommendations for the Lakeport Camp and Shine event. And E, receive and file the fiscal year 2024-25 quarter two update from the Community Development Department. Does any council member wish to pull any of those items? Does a member of the public wish to comment on any of those items? Don't see anyone in the room. Mel, any hands raised online?
No hands raised online.
Thank you. So can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, if there's nothing further, I'd move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This is the public presentation portion of the evening in which any person may speak about any subject within the authority of the city council, provided that the subject is not already on tonight's agenda. So this is the free-form version of your input. Per Government Code 54954.3A, the city council cannot take action or express a consensus of approval or disapproval on any public comments regarding matters which do not appear on the printed agenda. That said, we'd still love to hear from you. Is anybody in the room? Would anybody in the room like to come forward and provide comment? Thank you.
This on?
Yes.
Good evening, council and members of the public. I'm Brad Rasmussen, Lakeport resident, also the District 4 supervisor. I just wanted to take a second to mention that right now we have a fire board opening. As you know, that both the city council and the board of supervisors appoint those positions. Right now, the opening that we have happens to be a county appointed position. I believe there's a little under 3 years left on the term that's vacant. So if you folks or anybody in the public is aware of anybody that's interested, the application period is open until 5 o'clock this coming Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Should have asked, where would the public find that information and application?
The application is available. There's a press release about it on the Board of Supervisors page with a link to the standard county committee or commission applications. And they would just fill out Lakeport Fire District on there. So if anybody has questions, they can certainly get a hold of me or the assistant board clerk at the county admin office. And also I should thank the city for, they shared that press release and also on their website and social media. So I do appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to provide input on something not on tonight's agenda? Nobody else in the room? Mel, any hands raised online?
No hands raised online.
Thank you. So we'll close that portion of the agenda and move on to new employee introduction.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce a new employee in the Community Development Department, Amanda Sable. Amanda, why don't you come on up? So Amanda's our new administrative specialist in the Community Development Department, which has us fully staffed at 5 people. So a small but mighty team here working for the city of Lakeport on a day-to-day basis. And so a little bit about Amanda that I'll share with you is she's lived in Lakeport since 2013 after meeting her husband, who was born and raised here in Lakeport. They have one very spoiled dog. In her free time, she loves to curl up with a good book or go thrift shopping. In her professional capacity, she has spent the past 7 years working for local eye doctors here in Lakeport and decided it was time for something new. And she's excited to work for the city that has become her home. So I'd like to welcome our new administrative specialist in Community Development Department, Amanda Sable.
I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity, and I'm so excited to continue. It's been almost a month now, and it has already flown by. So I'm looking forward to continuing my time.
Great.
Welcome.
Glad you're here. Thank you. And thank you, Director Henowitz. Next, we have a presentation on the Toys for Tots program. Jason Hanover.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Hanover, the Toys for Tots coordinator for the 2024 and current coordinator for 2025 Toys for Tots Foundation. in Lake County. Took screenshots, so this would help me. So last year, we serviced 1,662 children in the Lake County area. A total of 3,791 toys were distributed amongst those children. Addition to that, 1,309 toys were collected within the community of Lake County by various donations by personal individuals and other companies as well. With me today, I brought some plaques to award to some of the local areas that have helped us. I'd like to list those that I can recall of. Those were the police department in Lakeport and Clear Lake, Community First Credit Union in Lakeport and Clear Lake Fire Station on Olympic Drive, the Orchard Park Senior Living Community in Clear Lake, Mendo Mill in Lakeport and Clear Lake, the Rad Hair Studio in Clear Lake, Marshalls in Lakeport, Walmart in Clear Lake, AT&T in Lakeport and Clear Lake, Redwood Credit Union in Clear Lake, Lake Family Resource Center in Lower Lake, Funtopia in Middletown, Hardesters in Hidden Valley Lake and Middletown, Greenview Restaurant and Golf Course in Hidden Valley, Lady Luck Garage in Kelseyville, the Middletown Fire Department, and Paul Millette. A couple of those I want to point out is first I want to thank the Lakeport City Hall with this plaque to them directly because they donated very generously this specific room we're in right now. That was a huge success and worked out very perfect for our campaign.
We're so glad that you held the event here. Thank you, Jason.
I could, I'd like to move this.
I think that
No,
one's
no,
that one's for
that-
City Hall.
that one's a
That's
city
all
one
different.
down.
I think he's just
coming up.
handing it on. You could pass it around, Chief. And we'll
I just handed that
pass
to
it
you,
on
pass
to-
it to everybody up here so they can see it. Additionally to that, I want to thank the Lakeport, the city of Lakeport, the Lakeport Police Department for their generous donation of their staff, their officer and his dog. We actually got a specific plaque for the Lakeport Police Department in addition to a specific plaque for Officer Olin.
Woohoo. Olin. Now, Officer Olin did something special, didn't he, in this whole event?
He absolutely did. And so we did what was something that was the first time in Lake County. We did a fill a cop car event at the Marshall store, and Officer Olin and Officer Welter came down and we filled the entire back of his K9 Cruiser full of toys
Oh,
in a
nice.
matter of just a few hours. It was a
And-
really
and-
fun event.
Did people get the opportunity to take a picture with Officer
There
Olin?
was a lot of pictures. If you look on I believe it's Lakeport Police Department's Facebook page, as well as the K9 Association, as well as Lakeport or Lake County Toys for Tots Facebook pages, you'll see a lot of photos with a lot of kids and a lot of community
Awesome.
members with Officer Olin.
Very cool.
Yeah, this one to you.
Olin.
He's very excited to be here.
We're excited that he's here.
In addition to that, I want to thank our volunteers. We really couldn't do it without our volunteers. I know that it's a lot of work that goes into it. Our volunteers are not often recognized. One of the first people I want to recognize is my co-coordinator, Tracy. She's back there. A little bit about Tracy is she has been the coordinator in Mendocino County for I think the last 8 years, where I was the co-coordinator. And then this year when we saw the need for Lake County, we jumped over and stepped over really quick. In addition to that, we had numerous volunteers come in and help with the distribution amongst the time of collecting toys, getting boxes out, getting boxes back in, working with local businesses such as as small as Firestone Pizza to help us with food for our volunteers throughout the distribution. We do our distribution for 3 days. It starts on a Friday when we set up, and we do the distribution Saturday and Sunday. And like I said, this was a perfect setting for where we had our tables and everything like that, with being able to have restricted access back here to everything that we couldn't have out there yet. In addition to that, like I said, our volunteers, they're just phenomenal. They work hours and hours and hours that nobody would even believe that would go into something that seems so minor and so fun and so small. It is very stressful. With that, I have a few volunteers that came out and helped, one being a high school student. Holly, if you can come on up here. Normally, we don't often always do gifts for our volunteers just because it's tedious and it's difficult for us to get. But however, the foundation allowed us to do really cool
Nice.
cups for our volunteers. And so this is for you, Holly.
Nice.
There's your box. Since we've seen one, I don't have to show them all. In addition to her, with her mother helped, Rhonda, if you want to come on up. And then we had a really cool, she doesn't want me to really brag about her, but we had a really cool advantage that we had a Michaela, who her husband is Sergeant Welter, and she did a lot of help with pushing like the social media ads through Facebook pages, getting the word out there, because there was a lot of discrepancies in the prior years. And so we needed to get a fresh start and get the businesses back involved. And so she did a lot of help with that. She helped organize the Fill a Cop car and throwing ideas and just being a huge support for all that. And so I want to thank her for her time. We'll acknowledge her bubbly attitude the entire time. We're super proud, super happy to do it. She says she's really eager to do it next year as well. In addition to that, I have two other volunteers that I want to recognize that aren't here right now, but they were tirelessly helping fill the tables, bag things for items. I was very, very grateful. One of them was actually Spanish speaking because my co-coordinator is the only other Spanish speaker we have. And so on Saturday or Sunday, when my co-coordinator wasn't here, we had another person there, which was amazing. Her name is Ailita. She is not here tonight. And in addition to that, not only did she come, but her children came and helped do the distribution as well, and that's Carrie Bridges. Thank you.
Nice. All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, really quickly, I just wanted to compliment Jason. Your hard work. I know bringing this back to Lake County with such professionalism stuff is really appreciated. So we're looking forward to the upcoming years as well. You and your team did a wonderful job.
It was awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, we're into the public hearings section of the agenda, and the first item is the loitering ordinance. The item is to adopt the proposed ordinance amending Lakeport Municipal Code, Section 9.04.030, regulating use of public restrooms. Believe this is Chief Stobie, yes?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, the city council is being asked to conduct a public hearing relative to the changes in that ordinance. Some backstory and history on this particular item. More than 18 months ago, police department through officer contacts noticed that there was a significant increase in the number of people loitering around and the entrances and within the restrooms. And for the sake of enhancing public safety in the community, staff took it to modify or make the suggested modifications to the ordinance for that purpose. As you can see, the meat of the modifications really address the behavior and prescribe a certain distance to be able to enforce prohibition to quell that particular behavior with the carve-outs for lawful purposes. Certainly, if there are any questions that you have, I'm certainly here to do my best to answer those. And you are being asked to hold the public hearing and either adopt the ordinance as it's presented, provide further input, and refer the ordinance back to staff modification, or to not adopt the ordinance as it's presented.
Okay, and the staff, I note that the staff report has detailed information about the language of the new ordinance, et cetera. So Do any council members have questions regarding the item, the ordinance?
No questions.
And public input? Any member of the public have questions or comments on this item?
Don Bays, live here in Lakeport, but I work for Clear Lake. I do the facilities maintenance, and one of my duties is to go into the bathrooms, make sure they're stocked and clean, and that sort of thing. I want to tell you that my worst nightmare is going in there and finding an OD victim. Fortunately, that hasn't happened, but anyway, just throw that out there.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone in the room? All right, any hands raised online, Mel?
No hands raised.
Okay, bring it back to council for any discussion.
Madam Mayor, if there's nothing further, I'll move to adopt the proposed ordinance amending the Lakeport Municipal Code, Section 9.04.030, regulating use of public restrooms.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. All right, the next item is the Parkside Tax Credit Authorization. The item is to adopt the resolution of the City Council of the City of Lakeport approving the issuance of the California Municipal Finance Authority exempt facility bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million for the purpose of financing or refinancing the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of Parkside Apartments and certain other matters relating thereto. This is an item in which I have a conflict because the home that we own and live in is within 1,000 feet from the project, so I'll be recusing myself from this item.
Chris, I will also be recusing myself due to a financial conflict. I am currently working on new construction in the area, so I will be recusing myself as well.
Thank you. As Mayor Pro Tem, I will be running this item. It's presented by our Community Development Director, Joey Henowitz.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Disney and council members. So as introduced, we are looking to, the City Council is being asked to hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lakeport approving the issuance of the California Municipal Finance Authority exempt facility bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million for the purpose of financing or refinancing the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of Parkside Apartments. The California Municipal Finance Authority requested that the City of Lakeport approve the issuance of the bonds by the authority to satisfy the public approval requirement of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code. This section of the Revenue Code requires public approval for these tax-exempt private activity bonds, and it does require the appropriate governmental unit, which would be yourself, the City of Lakeport, and the City Council to hold this public hearing, give interested people a chance to share their views on the bond issue and the proposed project, as well as that a notice needs to be posted. And we posted that notice on February 5th in the Lake County Record B for this item. Furthermore, there are requirements of Section 4 of the Joint Exercise Powers Agreement relating to the California Municipal Finance Authority. Also, they need to be met. And as the City Council of the City of Lakeport, you are the elected legislative body for the city, and one of the applicable elected representatives required to approve the issuance of the bonds under Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code. It should be noted that the debt to be issued will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and the City of Lakeport will have no financial or legal obligations or responsibilities regarding the repayment of the debt. All financing documents will carry disclaimers that the loan is not an obligation to the city. And once again, the City of Lakeport will bear no costs in the issuance of the proposed debt. And just to let you know, if you're available for any questions, we do have representatives from the California Municipal Finance Authority here in the room, as well as the developer online, if you have any specific questions for them or the process. But we're available for any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Joey. Council, any clarifying questions?
Nope.
Okay, let's see from the public. Anybody in the room want to speak on this matter? Come on up.
You all know I do. I don't have an objection to this bond. The city doesn't have to pay any money. That's fine, whatever. But I still object to this project. And so I did some research and I can I have that
Yeah, he'll put it up there.
viewer up there? Anyway, it was pretty interesting, but let's see, where am I? My pages are all shuffled. So, sorry. I'm wasting my 3 minutes.
It's all right, Don.
Where'd it go? All right, well, I had the agenda here and it talks about that this area, here it is. I printed on both sides, so I'm going to be flipping around. The agenda says, or the report says, Parkside is located outside a fire hazard zone as determined by CAL FIRE and is classified as a non-very high fire hazard severity zone within the County of Lakes local responsibility area. The Lakeport Fire Protection District serves the area with any here we go. With any location in the city accessible within 3 to 5 minutes, that's great. The proposed residential development is situated along Fenway Street and Yankee Avenue near Parallel Drive and State Route 29. So it's close to a couple ways out. But there's still only one way in and one way out. Additionally, the flat terrain offers easy firefighters to get in there. The next paragraph, although not required by the initial study, it was required by the city council in 2005 when this whole thing started, way back when they only wanted 98 units and now they want to double the amount of units and the amount of people in this area. It just doesn't make sense. And still, I mean, the mantra is one way in and one way out. And so you talk about mitigating that particular thing by putting up, connecting a road from Yankee to Craig and putting a bridge over the creek. Now I'm wondering, has anybody talked to the Army Corps of Engineers about that?
About the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been one of the commenting agencies on the project.
Okay, well, anyway, I hope so, because that's their jurisdiction, if I remember correctly. Bollards, we're gonna put in bollards, and that sounds a lot like chaining exit doors on a movie theater, and we all know that's a bad idea. So then what I did was I downloaded the California AG's guidance on all this. This guidance was written in October of 2022, which was 1 month before this council approved the negative mitigations and changing all the zoning. So really, that was the time that this should have been stopped. Obviously, I can't stop it. I don't think any of you can stop it. But there needs to be some actual mitigations, not a fake bridge across a creek that nobody can use. Now, I also want to show up here, can we zoom in and pull up where Parkside is? So first of all that red is high fire severity area zones as determined by CAL FIRE. It's not been certified yet. It's got to go through a whole big process. But those zones are high fire severity, high hazard severity, and the gold is, no, the red is very high and the gold is high. So if you look, right next to 29, there's Parallel Drive. That is the only way in and out of this place. And it's all within the high hazard zone. So anyway, if you could just pull down to the left a little bit. Then go straight up right there where, well, so where Camden and Yankee and Fenway are, it's that short street right over. It's over there to the right.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay, that whole area is where all these apartments, high density, 176 families are going into this area. And it is a high fire hazard zone as determined by CAL FIRE. And unfortunately, the staff report says it's not in a very high area. I talked to a battalion chief in Sacramento today, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's fully in a very high area." And unfortunately, all they can do is say that that's very high, and then it's up to the local area to say, what kind of buildings are we going to put in there? I mean, and what kind of permitting are we going to have? But anyway, my main objection is that there's only one way in and one way out. So I want to read a couple of things by the AG, Robert Bonta, that have to do with evacuation.
And Don, I don't want to cut you off prematurely, but I do want to hear from people online and anyone else in the
That's all
room.
right. You know what?
But you can,
I'm about to quit this whole thing in the first place.
you
I mean,
can continue.
like it's been said, the time to stop this was at the Planning Commission, actually. And they didn't do their job, and they didn't insist that the developer do his job. And they just passed it on to the council, and the council just okayed it, and without any thought about evacuation, about how they're going to deal with this. And by the way, just because somebody determined that this was a high severity hazard just a couple of weeks ago, it's been the same way since I've lived there, since 2015, 2016. It's been exactly the same. So it was just as high then as it is now. Anyway, so everybody knew that. Planning Commission knew that. All of you guys knew it. Everybody knows it. And so anyway, I'm sorry. I did have a lot of stuff, and it's too much anyway. And so, all I can say is you're almost rid of me. I'm always going to object to this thing the way it is.
Thank you, Don. And anybody else in the room like to speak on this matter? Hi.
Hi, Elaine Brown. I just think that's something that's easily solved. If you get that many families in here, you're building your commerce, you're getting a more tax base that can provide for building of a road. So you get, it's kind of a low, from what I see, this county is kind of low density in people. And so if you get more families in here paying taxes, being a part of the school system, you revive the economy that we need in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Anybody else in the room? Mel, anybody online with their hand raised?
We have one Brooks Laura.
Okay. Hi, Brooks, can you hear us?
No, it's his wife, Jennifer.
Okay. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I just wanted to speak a little bit on what Don was talking about. When this project originally began, I presented you all with fire map after fire map after fire map, presented you with all of Lanta's stuff. And recently my husband was hospitalized and they wanted to send him home before he was fully well. And I questioned the doctor and said, "You're sending him home to die. I feel like you're building a trap for us to die in." Very similar. I feel like you don't take our lives seriously. We are of little importance to you. We're not even worth putting a road in to protect the very people that you claim to care about. So that's where I stand. I'm with Don. I will never support this project the way it is. I feel like the developer owes us some more than what he's doing. You want this? Fine. I can't argue it now. But for God's sakes, care enough about people to do something right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands, Mel?
No other hands raised.
One more in the room here. You can come on up.
Good evening, Honorable
Pro
Mayor
Tem.
And council members. My name is Ben Barker. I'm with the California Municipal Finance Authority. So we're the proposed bond issuer for the project. And I just want to remind everyone that the public hearing is for the bonds that are going to be issued and for the viability of the tax exemptness, and that the city will have no liability or responsibility with the bonds, and that what you're doing is approving that the CMFA will be the issuer so that the city doesn't have any risk or liability on the project or with the bonds issued for the project. And I can answer any questions if there's anything about the project and with that. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Sorry. Anybody else from the public in the room or online?
No other hands raised.
No
on.
hands and nobody in the room. So I will close the public portion, bring it back to council for a discussion and or a motion. Anything?
Well, this is one that's been bannered about a lot, and there was a lot of stuff that that it isn't always in the best interest of certain segments. Obviously, I think I pointed out that I wouldn't want 130 apartments across the street from my house when it wasn't in the original plan. But I spoke to some people in finance here at the city, and as a fiduciary of the city, they were talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars of discretionary income and different opportunities for improvement in the lives we lead. And I've been in Lakeport, living here for over 55 years. There's been a couple fires. We had a fire recently, and a couple houses were burned, windows were blown out, and a couple fences and stuff. But I am just one of those people that I don't always live on the brink of waiting for the next, disaster to stop progress and potential financial benefit for all of us that live not only in Lakeport, but in the contiguous counties and throughout the county. So this is a tough situation, but the housing market is not going to tolerate $500,000 homes. The idea of getting people in there with 30% of their income for housing, leaving a huge amount of discretionary income, will help the ailing, I would say, all of the increased costs that we're having, utility costs, inflation, all those things. I think that in the overall estimation, as what we're supposed to do up here, this is probably the best thing that we can do under the circumstances. And I know that you can't please all the people all the time, obviously, but to say that we don't care about people in Lakeport that's a pretty cheap shot. I think that we wouldn't be doing this for essentially nothing. And this is about as thankless a job as my other job, being a referee. Half the time, everybody hates your guts, okay? Because you made, call a strike on their kid or whatever. We can't win them all, but we're up here to make the best decision for as many people as we can under the circumstances. So, and as far as the bond issue goes, I think we have to move forward on that.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, one of the things that Dawn said is very true, is that we didn't necessarily have the control over this. We can't stop housing, and whether or not we changed any of the zoning or not, that property was still available to build even more units than what this development looks like. So yeah, it's offensive to call us the bad guys. We're trying to make it as complimentary of a project as possible. And the bonds, it's just the right thing. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution of the City Council of the City of Lakeport approving the issuance of the California Municipal Finance Authority exempt facility bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed 35 million for the purpose of financing or refinancing the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of Parkside Apartments and certain other matters relating thereto.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The motion carries. We can call in, yes, thank you, Ben. Call in the two council members to continue this meeting. And I will take my proper seat.
Thank you, Pro Tem.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Another excellent.
I will just, because there's a couple people in the room and still people online while the remaining two council members and the mayor's coming in. The next item that we are talking about is the fire season after action report. And that'll be coming up here in just a minute. We probably should have taken a brief recess,
They're
but
coming. I hear them.
here they are.
Okay, next up, we have council business. First items are from the city manager. And the first of the two items is the fire season after action report, in which the council will receive an informational presentation from the city of Lakeport and Lakeport Fire Protection District regarding 2024 wildland fire incidents and ongoing mitigation efforts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As your council's aware, we did have quite an active fire season past year. And so in my regular meetings with Chief Wrights, with the Lakeport Fire Protection District, we discussed the need to perhaps do kind of a after action kind of overview report of one of the incidents that occurred and kind of, talking specific about some of the circumstances there, and then kind of just having a open discussion and review of some of our mitigation efforts. And as referenced in the last item, also CAL FIRE has recently proposed some changes to the city's mapping. We'll have a public hearing on that probably in a month or two, but we can use this opportunity as kind of a first introduction of some of those provisions. And then there's a number of other kind of related mitigation items that are happening regionally too that we can kind of quickly discuss. But first, I'll bring up Chief Wrights. He has a presentation kind of going over a few of the incidents that did occur, and I will hand it over to him first.
Madam Mayor, council, staff, members of the public, thanks for having me. You want to expand on that for me, please? There we go. Go ahead and go to the next. Oh, you're gonna let me control
Heck
this?
yeah.
Okay. I might need your help. All right. Just a little bit about Lakeport Fire Protection District. We were established in 1894 and today we have approximately a $4 million operating budget. Staffed with 12 full-time firefighters, and those are the majority of those are firefighter paramedics, and we're adding more all the time as some of our members increase on their certifications. We have 2 admin, 1 fire chief, and numerous part-time on-call employees and volunteers. And we're growing those ranks as we speak as well. It's amazing how many. Tonight is drill night, and every time I walk in there, there's new faces. So we do have a rule that we don't learn their names until they've made it through their task book, and we know that they're actually going to be members. No, that's not. But it does seem like that some days. We run an average of 2,800 calls plus or minus annually, and roughly 85% of those calls are EMS. Our fleet, we have 3 Type 1 or structure engines. We have 2 Type 3 or brush wildland engines, 1 ladder truck, 2 ALS ambulances, which, by the way, were just, we had those rechassied in this last year. So they are brand new, essentially. We have 1 water tender, which also had a large amount of work done on it, and we're in the market for another water tender. And just back up to the ladder truck, we're looking at sending that back east sometime in the next 1 to 3 years, depending on availability to get it back there. They're about 2 years behind for refurbish on that unit. We have 2 rescue watercraft, or our jet skis, which some of you have seen, and we have put to work several times over the course of the year and a half that we've had them in service. We have a new UTV rescue as well, 2 utility trucks, and brand new Chief's Command rig, which is actually not new, but we purchased that used as well and upfitted it for our needs. Weed abatement, we work hand in hand with the county and the city when it comes to weed abatement. We follow up on complaints. 12 notices were issued, 6 notices were followed up dealing with building plan submissions. So we found another hammer in our toolbox, and that is you submit for a building plan and we don't allow a permit until you abate your property. And we've caught some major offenders by holding up their building permits doing this. We forwarded 2 notices to city code enforcement to get them involved, and we forwarded 1 to county code enforcement as well. Call statistics, just kind of a breakdown, essentially for 2024. This number seems low, but we did not include all of the outfires that we responded on, or good intention calls as well. But kind of a summary that we responded to 12 wildland fires in our district that were out in the county or SRA area. The wildland in the city, we responded to 4. Out of district, we responded to 9. 13 residential fires out in the county, residential being structure fires, 2 in the city. Out of district, we mutual aided on 7 of those, and then we lost approximately 56 acres inside of our district. We did not break those out for county and city, although I can tell you that it was about 5 acres total, maybe inside the city. Major incidents we had this year were Hilton Circle, or some of us know that as Boggs and Hartley, got a little exciting, caused by a lawnmower. And if you look at the cutoff date, or the date of occurrence was June 14th. When do we have to have our properties abated by? June 1st. Started by a lawnmower. STEP was a structure fire into vegetation. We included this in here. One, that was a major fire. It was a major loss with damage to a multifamily structure unit that had already been red tagged and was not to have anyone living in it, although that we know that they were in violation. Additionally, we had several spot fires, including 20 feet up in an oak tree that had caught inside the oak tree and was burning, and we had to get a little creative with that, and a combination of CAL FIRE, ARG folks, and a PG&E truck, because there was a power line involved in that as well. And to do it safely, we handed the PG&E rep the hose and sent him up in his bucket and we supervised him very closely. We had a fire in November, which was a structure fire out in North Lakeport in the county portion of our district. That was a structure fire that was during the great downpour of the time. I believe we received probably 2 inches of rain while we were on that fire. It was a very, very wet fire. So no spread to the vegetation. In the county, I think some of you remember the transfer station fire we were on all night. We've taken some steps and are still taking some steps. And they were billed for that fire, as a matter of fact, not only for our services, but for the foam that we used to help extinguish that fire. So we're still working with them to get some corrections done, but a problem was a buildup of fuel, and we had spontaneous combustion in probably the garbage pile, not even the vegetation pile. But they had I just drove past there 2 days before, looked at that pile, and I said, wow, that is a lot of fuel. And it proved me correct. The 12th of June, Mackey Road, that was out off of Robin Hill. 3 acres started again by a lawnmower. No water. By the way, all of these had either no water present or attempted to use a dry chem fire extinguisher to put out a vegetation fire, and dry chem does not work in vegetation. And I will not get into explaining fire theory and extinguishing agents to you until you really want that information. June 19th, the Scotts fire out in Scotts Valley was started by a string trimmer. Again, look at the date. No water present. There minimum 100 gallons you're required when you're abating properties like this, and had no water present at all. 17th of July was Highway 29 was a 1/4 acre fire. That was actually one of 2 starts. We had one across the border heading towards Upper Lake on Highway 29 that was 3 acres. That one North Shore handled along with some CAL FIRE units. We got to keep ours at a 1/4 acre. However, we think that was caused possibly by dragging chains, given the start between the fires and the commonality. The August 31st fire, I think we all, anyone who happened to be in the neighborhood or in the town knows about that fire, and tried to get into that fire. Everybody likes to be like moths to the flame, and which we would really like to strongly discourage. Appreciate all the assistance that we receive from law enforcement, trying to not only evacuate, but keep the roads closed and trying to keep people out. And everybody with a camera claims to be a member of the press because they have a Facebook page or TikTok or whatever, and they're trying to get hits. But we did get some different angles of that video. That was a vegetation fire, started on the highway, spread into the neighborhood, damaged 2 homes, destroyed 1, and destroyed several fences. And hopefully how do I get this to play?
Should just be able to click. If you just click on it.
I just click on what?
Well,
There you go.
So this is in real time, and I'll have him play this once or twice all the way through. This is one of your dash cam videos of law enforcement from LPD. And what I want you to pay attention to is we initially thought this was a BLEVE, or boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. And we now think it may have been actually a propane gas explosion in the garage first, which punctured the propane tank and launched the 100-gallon propane tank. So just for frame of reference, 100-gallon propane tank is about yay big around, and it's about that. And launched that over 100 yards. But luckily missed our people in between several fire trucks and in between several personnel. We're going to go to the next. Let it blow up. got very exciting, and luckily no one was hurt in this. Construction crew had been working on that house and pulled back and was starting to protect the neighborhood when that explosion blew. So we're going to go to the next one. So this slows it down just a little bit, and kind of show you what we're looking at is you'll watch police car go by, and right about in that area is where you're going to see the explosion, the first explosion. So you're going to see two explosions. There's the first one. That's a garage launch 60 feet into the air and coming down into the roadway. And then that shooting out is that 100-gallon propane tank, and it actually bounced. So we'll show it again, and you'll see that it actually bounced on the ground and then continued its path of travel. And then it hit on the uphill side towards the road, and then rolled down into the yard. So there's a garage door. There is a propane tank. There's the bounce, and it keeps on going. So just a little bit exciting. Did do a check of all personnel to make sure everybody was accounted for immediately after. Stopped operations momentarily to do an assessment and risk assessment for safety, and then continued on with our operations. So very, very challenging. All of these fires, we had folks that grabbed their garden hose and proceeded to try to water their roofs, water their lawns, and not evacuate when told. I can't emphasize enough, if you're told to evacuate, we want you to evacuate. There's good reason to evacuate for your own safety, for your family's safety, and for our safety. And in addition, you're using my water. Please quit using the fire department's water when it comes to extinguishing. We need every drop, and we saw what happened down in the Palisades fire. So very, very important. We're not, and it's not showtime, folks. This is not the time to come in with your drones. That particular explosion, we had aircraft fortunately nearby, and were assisting us in dousing that, including a helitanker that came in and made numerous 3,000-gallon drops on that structure. And I think we estimated that we put in on that house somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 to 32,000 gallons of water from the air, trying to control that. We were limited in being able to use retardant on that fire because of safety of personnel on the ground. So this is the new fire hazard severity zone maps that just came out from CAL FIRE, and I'm going to try to keep my language clean on this. And I'm not happy about this. There's a lot of us that are not happy about this, because these zones, the maps have been being built over the last couple of years. They do not take into account large fires. They do not take into account new development that will be clearing acreage. This is a 50-year map, and we can't do anything about it. We are told that the agencies having land management authority, that being you and the county, must adopt these maps. They give us a public hearing process that's lip service only. So I don't see why I need to couch my remarks, because the state has basically thrust this down our throats and told us that there's no grounds for appeal. There's no grounds to alter these maps for 50 years. There is no plan for reassessment on these maps that I can find out that they've disclosed. They've been asked very pointedly. My public comment to the state back in the day, when we were allowed to make public comment on when they were forming these maps, and they told us these were going to be 50-year maps, was that you need to have a 10-year map, not a 50-year map. This needs to be, and we need to have some method that when we have a large fire that's cleared of vegetation, or we have development that is clearing and creating these zones, or we are doing fuels mitigation projects, which we have several planned around our fire district, working with Clerk to get Hogback Ridge crew in, and maybe some other crews in, to start mitigating fuels. There's no provision in any of this to address that with these maps. We are stuck with these. And that is very, very unfortunate because the state also legislatively allowed, or I guess it would be administratively allowed, administratively allowed. It was illegal up until last month to use these maps for insurance purposes. We know that the insurance companies were using them, but now it is absolutely permitted for the insurance companies to look at these maps when considering your insurance on a go-forward basis. So what I did was just break down this map to show you the borders and kind of the severity zones, zooming in a little bit more, just to give you an idea of what we are looking at for the city of Lakeport. And when you go back and you look at what else has been added to, we've had some other pockets in North Lakeport that were added. And it's just, I don't know what else to say about it, because I have yet to figure out, other than we're going to be able to apply for grants. We are going to be able to get some assistance with fuels mitigation. The Lake County Fire Protection District, and I believe South Lake Fire Protection District, both adopted their own CWPPs. We're looking at that as well, but I'm going to tell you that Lakeport's probably 2 years away from being able to do that, just because of staffing and work challenges and just the workload. So, but that is something that we can also use and partner with the city of Lakeport and the county to go after additional grant funding to try to do fuels reduction and work on projects despite what the county is trying to do or the state is trying to do for us. That is my presentation. I was told to keep it under 2 hours and under 150 slides. So I will be happy to entertain any questions, comments, or remarks that you may have for me at this time. If not, I will take my seat and let Kevin finish up.
So Chief, I noticed that you had acreage burned in the Lakeport fire area, but in the city of Lakeport, it looked like from 21, 22, 23, 24 was less than 100 acres total in 4 years.
Yes, we have not had a large scale fire in our district in a number of years, and we're going to continue to keep that going forward.
And it looked also to me like the fires that we had in 24, it looked like at least a very large percentage, if not all of them, were like out of the sequence of events that they should have been, like after June 1st and other types of things that like dragging chains, which it says on the Caltrans signs, dragging chains cause fires, and that could have caused 2 fires. So the people that are not abiding by the law seem to be, and just like, let's say, illegal fireworks, those things are the ones that cause most of the problems and so forth. So when you have these people that are outside the law, and not that say it's not a danger anyway when these things do happen, but people have to like almost self-regulate themselves and realize that this is of utmost importance to their neighbors, and that we can't be all the places all the time. But it looks to me like a lot of those things, 56, 19, 75, 14, and 1 acres burned, that's in the entire district, right? That not just in the city of Lakeport.
Well, that's my understanding. I wouldn't put stock in anything before 23 for stats. Just given what I'm dealing with our master plan right now, trying to get good, clean stats. It's very, very challenging. This also especially in 2021, may not have taken into account the state responsibility area for reporting. And we tried to include as much of that in our report as possible. It's in our district, but it's SRA, state responsibility area. So,
but overall, it just doesn't seem like we're riddled with large acreage fires in the city of Lakeport, and that it's always going to be an imminent danger, but it's not like something that historically happens.
We're not, and and I'm sorry, one thing I left off the slides that I would add is that we did not have a vegetation fire or structure fire this year's caused by fireworks inside the city of Lakeport. We had our usual dumpster fire. We all know where it's at, Safeway's parking lot or CVS's parking lot, burns every year because they dump their hot fireworks in, and then the fireworks set the paper that the fireworks came in on fire. So, last year we had a structure fire on July 4th caused by improperly disposed of fireworks. We have, but for the most part, everybody complains about the fireworks every year, we know, and we'd love to say we're only safe and sane, and we're not. And, we're working collectively to bring that number down of illegal fireworks. And we were very aggressive this year, to the point of the ordinance does not allow fireworks discharge after 11 p.m. And immediately at 11 p.m. this year in the Safeway parking lot, we were on our PAs with law enforcement, shutting them down. It took us about half hour to get them shut down and chased out. And people were not happy and they were not nice. And I don't care, but we worked very aggressively to enforce the ordinance to get that matter. Because the year before it was midnight, almost 1 o'clock in the morning, that we were still running, illegal fireworks calls. And this year, I think because of our aggressive enforcement posture, we got it shut down earlier, and we didn't have nearly the hanger-ons that we had the year before. So 2 years into this, and as far as July 4th goes, and we're going to keep working on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for?
Quick question, just thinking broader scope about the city and its protections. What does the a truck pump gallons per minute approximately? You said that the helicopter could drop 3,000 gallons at once. What does a normal truck do?
Ours are 1,250 gallons or 1,500 gallons
Per minute?
per minute, but that is maximum output with the right size hoses. So that's all rated. We don't use 2.5-inch hose, and we don't use all the ports at 2.5-inch when we are extinguishing these blazes. But that, we only carry 500 gallons on the truck. We're dependent on the hydrant system. And inside of the city of Lakeport, we're very fortunate. We have a strong hydrant system, and we work hand in hand with utilities to make sure that stays strong, including hydrant maintenance, repairs, replacements as rapidly as possible, because we all know that we've got to have those hydrants, especially during fire season. And we had some challenges. So one fire that was only 1/4 of an acre, because of it was going into a neighborhood. We absolutely accessed those hydrants, and then we switched over and we actually ran our supply lines from the hydrants to the highway, so that we didn't have to keep running trucks up and down the highway.
Great. That's kind of what I was getting at is for our utilities, for our fire flow and our hydrants, it's acceptable to handle the 1,250 gallons per minute that your trucks will pump?
Yeah, we have had no problems with water supply within the hydrant system of the city of Lakeport. I would add to that we are working with your utilities and with Public Works to make sure that the water truck is adequately equipped for us to be able to utilize in the event of an incident. And we have a training next Friday, which has been floated for the county and city employees. And it's just a 1-day safety training to make them familiar on working on an incident for us or the state. And so we want to get those employees up and going. And then I want to find some grant money with the city to get them the proper PPE, the proper protective clothing, so that when they're out there, we don't put them in the line of fire. I'm just telling you, they don't want to be in the line of fire. We don't put them in the line of fire, but at the same time, they do need to have still some safety equipment, and we want to make sure that they are protected as much as possible. So we're bringing in this class. It's my understanding this has never taken place, and it's way past due.
Good. Well, thank you. One more question is, it seems like the few brush fires that were started after June 1st, people were likely trying to clear their weeds that they hadn't abated. Do you think we should change that date? Is it possible for us to push that a little earlier than June 1st?
Well, given the amount of fuel growth that we're already seeing, for this year, and we love the green up, but the fact that people don't keep up. I believe every one of them told me they did not know of the June 1st cutoff date. So, and others, you know, we're dealing with absentee property owners, and we can make excuses all we want with this, but the reality of it is that June 1st, how do we do a better job of advertising that? And maybe what we need to do is rather than the letter mailer that says, you know, this is your abatement notice, maybe we need to do the big color postcard, and it goes to all the property owners and say, June 1st is your cutoff. That doesn't mean don't wait till June 1st. It doesn't mean, you know, abating after is a bad thing, but I would at least they were, you know, I'd love to say at least they were abating. A couple of those properties, they burned quite nicely so that they didn't have to worry about abating the rest, and they weren't going to abate it anyway. So, you know, at least not the right way, but.
I'd note too further that mid-June of this year, kind of where you saw kind of a few of those fires take place, those were also red flag conditions, right? In that we had kind of in the middle of June, we had a large heat system. So, I mean, regardless of the June 1st deadline, there just needed to be a little bit more exercise of common sense. I mean, those were very, very hot, dry days. And I believe some of those fires were started, you know, at midday.
Well, and we had one up on the pass on the Hopland grade, a welder on a red flag day was grinding on a gate, and there was no, they had bottles of water. They didn't have their 100 gallons. Fortunately somebody grabbed a hand tool, and the wind was pushing against where the fire wanted to go. And so that kind of held the fire in check. And we were able to get up there and catch it. And it was only a 10 by 20 spot. Had it started on the opposite side of the road, that fire would have been extremely destructive and very, very large. So that welder promises me he will never work there again. So, and I turned him over to the state, and I don't know if the state cited him or not, but it was in SRA, so they may have.
We did move the date too. It was.
Okay, good. It used to be
It was July 1st.
4th. Yeah, July 1st. Yeah.
So a little better.
Yeah, a little better. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay.
Before we open to the public, I do have a couple of comments as well. You know, kind of, you're talking a little bit about some of our ongoing mitigation efforts, you know, working with Chief, our community development department, you know, gets out those hazardous weed materials. We try and get some publications out in advance of that date, noting the date. Then we do our checks right after that June 1st date, go out, issue courtesy notice, you know, that you have a couple weeks to get rid of those before we start assessing penalties. I think one of the things that Chief brought up this year that we'll definitely want to consider moving forward is rather than starting over again with those that didn't abate from the last year, that we kind of pick up at the penalty phase rather than starting over with a clean slate on that. So I think that's going to be something that we're going to be looking at going forward. The fire department, community development, and air quality sat down last year trying to come up with a our current municipal code prohibits outdoor burning within the city limits. If you own 1 acre or more in the unincorporated area, you can go and get an outdoor burn permit during this time of season, not June, July, but during the prescribed time, you can burn some of those vegetation, down limbs and other things like that are on your properties for properties that are over 1 acre. We wanted to set up a test pilot program for some of our properties that kind of make up the western boundary there. We've had a number of folks that come in and say, especially a couple of years ago when we had that snowstorm, there were a lot of downed trees and things like that they were wanting to manage that vegetation. I thought that we had a nice test pilot program set up, cooperated between the three entities. When we had those folks go ahead and apply for permits with air quality, they were all denied. So we were not able to kind of move forward with that program this year. That is something that I would like to look at and continue forward, because I think there are a number of properties on the west side that are far over 1 acre and are trying to do the right thing in managing their vegetation. And we would like to work with them. Kind of in addition to some of the things that Chief mentioned, where the Lake APC, our local area planning council, is actively working on a grant right now. They have a consultant that they've obtained looking countywide at kind of evacuation planning. They're not looking generally at existing routes. They're kind of looking at needed improvements throughout the region. That project certainly does include the city of Lakeport, and we've been working closely with them. It does have quite a bit more. I think the consultant just came on, and they're compiling some of the reports and stuff. So there'll be some additional opportunity to comment as that moves forward. In regards to physical evacuation routes, the county, as part of their general plan update right now, their consultant that they are utilizing is also compiling a climate resiliency plan, and a portion of that includes some evacuation planning route mapping, and that does include the city of Lakeport. We've been involved in that process, and that's going to be a help going forward. PD does frequently send out. We're constantly trying to build up our participation by residents and other members in the local area in our Nixle sort of Everbridge alert system. If folks are not signed up for that program, that is probably one of the best ways to get accurate information on these ongoing incidents when they're coming in. So there is on the city page and and on the Lakeport PD's page instructions on how to sign up for that, and we will continue to be getting that information out on a regular basis, getting more and more individuals set up on that. Returning to the CAL FIRE local responsibility area mapping that Chief noted there. Those maps were just provided to us this past Monday. We've been told that they've been working on these for several years, and then they told us that earlier this year that they would be releasing them. So Monday was our first sort of glimpse at those. We've been working jointly with all the fire districts in the county, as well as the County of Lake and the City of Clear Lake together in developing some consistent mapping on these things. I share every single one of Chief Wright's comments on it. There is not a lot of opportunity for us to make changes. We can upzone areas if we would like to move things into higher zones, but we do not have the ability to reduce any of the proposed zones that have been provided. So we just started the 90-day kind of public comment circulation. We'll continue to get more communications out on that. So then probably we're looking March or April, we will schedule a public hearing before council per the legislation. Because we have very high and high zones within the city limits, we're required to adopt the maps and the accompanying ordinance on there. That's really the first step. I think there's quite a bit. This mapping is going to have a number of different repercussions. That ball is going to keep bouncing. Chief mentioned that some other entities, including Clear Lake, have adopted their own kind of specialized plan. I do think that is something that we need to be putting some focus on, kind of highlighting some of the large macro-related projects that entities like Clerk and other folks are doing for large-scale fire hazard reduction out in the state responsibility area, but then also highlighting a lot of the micro level things that we can do in the programs that are available for abating weeds and establishing the zone 0 ember resistant zones in that first 5 feet. I think there's a lot of different aspects that we can do to kind of continue. So one of the things we want to do is build kind of a toolkit for our residents to have on their fingertips when they inevitably receive, perhaps cancellation notices on their insurance, or receive, 300% plus increases on their insurance, that we have some of these toolkits to kind of provide that information back to the insurance providers that, look, there is a lot of things that are going on, and to try and help our residents maintain that insurance program. The biggest thing that kind of monitoring in that is that zone zero. AB 3074 that was passed in 2020 by the state legislature and signed into law by the governor establishes this, what's called zone zero. It's the first 5 feet surrounding your home is an ember resistant zone, and that requires removal of any vegetation. I mean, that's going all the way down to lawn. Anything that is combustible in that area needs to be removed. New construction in these zones are subject to more strict building code requirements. It hasn't been very clear how existing structures and stuff will have to meet these things. I know the real estate community has been kind of struggling a little bit on how to manage those disclosures, whose responsibility for obtaining the required inspections. CAL FIRE does the inspections. They said they will do the inspections in the state responsibility area zone, but it's not clear who's going to be doing the inspections in these now local responsibility zones. So those are some of the things that we're going to have to continue to look at and manage going forward. The governor, following the fires down in Southern California on February 6th, did pass an executive order ordering CDF and CAL FIRE to prepare kind of an implementation plan for how that zone zero is going to work for existing construction over the next 45 days. So we're certainly going to be monitoring that and going, because that will certainly have an impact to our residents here in the community. So we're going to continue to look and march that forward, but really the adoptions of the maps are really the most rudimentary pieces of this. It's how is it going to be used by the insurance companies? What kind of requirements are going to be placed on existing homes to meet some of these more strict standards? And so we're going to be diligent in kind of monitoring those, working very closely with the fire district, looking at what kind of grant opportunities are coming down the line that we can kind of work with entities like Clerk and others like that to try and offer programs to assist our residents meet some of these things. Knowing that we're likely to see a continued pickup in folks receiving non-renewals on insurance and, or best case scenario, some significant increases. And I've seen that across the board, not just in areas that are zoned very high or high. We've kind of seen that trend in the state responsibility for sure, but this will bring it a little bit closer to home. So we're going to continue to be diligent on that. And continue to take our efforts in fire mitigation very seriously.
I have a question. As we go through this, it's sort of, there's a lot of pieces there, the maps and then the efforts and the messaging to the public, et cetera. And I guess I'm looking forward to more conversation about what that looks like, how and when do we try to engage the public to be part of the conversation. I don't have the answer to that right now, but it's like I don't know that it's all have a plan all wrapped up to hand to the public. I think but it's also to have some ideas and some opportunities to present to people as we engage them. So I think maybe it's a question, but also a thought. I don't know if you've had any vision for that yet, but I guess I'm just saying that seems like something that we're going to want to think about, how to integrate the community into the conversation, how and when.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the effort that we're doing right now in regards to the maps. I don't think there's a lot I know there's not a lot of opportunity, as Chief said. We have to go through these public hearings and stuff on the maps, but we really don't have any ability to change the maps. So, but I think what you're alluding to, Madam Mayor, would be, kind of those later steps as we move forward, some of the ideas of whether we're looking into establishing a Firewise community or some of those programs. Absolutely, those are going to be community-wide efforts with a lot of public outreach.
And even just education about the maps so that people understand they are what they are. They don't change. Here's what we're all living. We're all in this together. We're all going to try to find some interventions together, et cetera.
Yeah, and I would compliment the efforts that that have been done. We've worked on some joint messaging and kind of building up, kind of a public kind of portal of this information, and that's currently available. And we're trying to keep that messaging consistent across all the fire districts, Clear Lake, City of Lakeport, and the county as well. And CAL FIRE does have some good information on how these zones were established. There's a great video on that website, kind of talking about how these maps were developed, what they envision them being used for, and then kind of talking about the process of the rollout. So I would encourage everyone to kind of take a look at that.
Thank you. Any other questions for the city manager from council? Comments from the public, people in the room?
Hi, Elaine Brown. I would just like to ask the fire chief, do I get to look at him or do I look at you? It's whatever.
I don't know these rules. I think you look
no.
at me and then he's gonna
It's directed
sneak up behind you.
But just if he could expand on the 50-year map situation, and I know you touched on some of it, Kevin, of what I wrote, like how is this going to affect, and you touched on this, the private insurer and the one that owns a business. How does this affect, do we get to clear the land? I'm not really sure what these maps delineate, what that has for people on the ground. And does that mean we can't clear them? And if we do clear it, sounded like you don't get to change the level for 50 years, even though it's different. Does that affect your insurance? Does that affect the building? Does that affect, what else did I write here? So in other words, like if you as someone who would have a voice in this that would be warranted, why are they silencing someone like you? Why is it for 50 years and not 10, which makes more sense? And I hope when the public speaks on this, I would hope they would address these things and not be pushed around by a state who is giving control over a local jurisdiction when, as my understanding, my research, they do not help fund fire equipment in this county or help in that capacity. So why are they having so much say? Also, the beautification of homes just destroyed, like Bougainvillea, different things that'll be on that make our community beautiful. I don't know if wineries are affected and they have to take 5 feet away. That's going to be quite ugly. And I just hope the public stands up for themselves. And I would really like, if that happens and you have this, what you're going to have the public speak on this, that we establish ground rules where people are respected. And if they want to talk about things such as directed energy, which may have happened in Paradise and Maui, and also aluminum, if that is really coming down from the sky, and I know you've seen fires are much faster and much quicker now, this vegetation is possibly absorbing aluminum, making them much more quickly burned. I would like to see public be able to speak to these things without being ridiculed, because sometimes there are people in the audience that will ridicule people and are planted there to do so. Thank you.
Elaine, before you run off, Elaine, so I just want to tell you I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
I simply just want to express sometimes it's very frustrating as a city official or a city staff, I would expect as well, when the mandates are coming from the state and we're all being hit with it. So
Exactly.
I think it'll be I look forward to that discussion so that we can try to figure out together what can we do, what is within our control. So I appreciate you highlighting.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate all of you, as you know. Thank you.
I can take the first shot at it before, and if Chief Wrights wants to clean up anything that I say that's wrong there. First, in regards to the 50-year nature of the maps, I do recommend taking a look at the video that is online on our public page. We have it linked there, that talks about what CAL FIRE intended the maps to be used for. I think the best parallelism there would be the same way that the flood insurance maps work. They're kind of larger, broader, kind of mapping of hazards. They're not meant I don't think that they intended them originally to be utilized for, some of the purposes that we know that they will be utilized for. So with that said, to answer some of Elaine's other questions in regards to, no, continued, projects where, thinning, shaded fuel breaks, regular fuel breaks, and all those that we have been doing, post our past 10 years of massive fires in the community. Those do not trigger. There's not an opportunity for those to be reviewed 15 years down the line to change those maps. In regards to new construction, that is built in those areas, they are subject to, additional building code requirements that are specific to those areas. And kind of like what we talked about in regards to, we're not quite sure how that zone 0 works. I've had the conversation with my wife about, what needs to be removed, and those did not go over very well. So, I mean, I think there will be quite a bit of, impact as we come through, and there's going to be a lot of educational pieces there. It's going to be interesting to see how it actually plays out with the insurance. So the insurance is not looking just at these maps. They have been given permission to move forward with what they have as called catastrophic modeling, of which these maps are just kind of one component going forward. So it's going to be something that we're going to continue to have to keep our eye on and kind of track those progresses and get that information out to our community. One of the big things we've already seen from discussions with other fire chiefs, in other areas, is when they are getting a whole slew of folks that are getting their insurance dropped, they have had some success. I wouldn't say total success of being able to show all the projects that they're doing in the area to do that, and that has been helpful in some of those things. And so I think that would be a good starting place for us. Clerk has a great database showing all the different projects that they've done. I mean, I think we need to have that information ready in the hands of our public when they do receive these non-renewals to kind of try and assist in pushing back.
Thank you.
So I think I'm not sure if
Any other residents, community members who want to speak to this issue? Any hands raised online, Mel?
No hands raised online.
Thank you. Bring it back to council for comment.
I just have one comment, and I'll wrap it up. It just seems that, when you consider the richest companies in the country, and the insurance companies are at the top of this, it's hard for me not to believe that somebody at CDF could not have been influenced in some way. And isn't it possible that maybe, because the way I see it, with the exception of cancellations, this has got to be the biggest cash cow where you have people going up double and triple their insurance. I'm sure it's affecting real estate. I've talked to numerous people that had the deal. They couldn't pay their insurance and their mortgage because they were the same. And when the insurance companies are one of the biggest benefactors of this, and anything that's kind of on the line, we'll just cancel them. I would hope that they were not influencing this, but I'm not that guy. I believe that these people are so insidious and they're worked through strange ways, and this is not this huge. And Elaine, I told everybody at a meeting 6 months ago, there's no doubt in the world that directed energy weapons hit Maui. They had firefighter, one from Lakeport, I think his name was John Lord, and he went up there with another firefighter, 35 years experience. They said Paradise was not a wildfire entirely. It might have ended up that way, but when you have melted cars to the ground, windshields melted at 2,200 degrees, it all works in the insurance company's best interest to just pound everybody. And when you talk about taking away another 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000, the economy of this town, along with the PG&E and high gas prices, there's not going to be a Lakeport if all this stuff goes through. And then how are you going to sell a house after you stripped 45 years of beautiful landscaping and you rip it away and you have this heinous looking building, and now it would be $3,500 a month plus $2,500 for insurance. It's $6,000 a month. This is going to be a very ugly place very soon because we don't have any autonomy. And a 50-year map, I mean, that's just insane. This is my comment.
Thank you. Any other comment or discussion from?
Madam Mayor, I just want to add that I appreciate the planning and pre-planning and coordination between the different departments, between the cities and the county. And it's like a miracle that you got that house out, and it didn't spread to the entire neighborhood. And I know that has a lot to do with the fact that, everyone showed up right away. Everyone knew their role and knew what to do. And I think we can always keep working at the communication with the public. But even that, I feel like our community knows what to do and how to be prepared. And I thank all of you, chief and staff, for doing that. And I think it saves lives and saved homes. So thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, that was going to be my comment as well, is that it's a big group effort, and especially that fire that was August 31st off of Highway 29 in Boggs. I live right in that area, and there's a creek that has a ton of overgrown brush, and this house was right in that proximity. It would have shot straight through to my house, and not only the fire department, but Public Works, the police staff. It is a real community effort to put some of these fires out before they get to a much bigger problem and destroy more homes and more property. So I do think that we could look into having a weed abatement notice of mid-May instead of June 1st, knowing that some people will wait until they get that notice to abate to actually clear their weeds, and then we're doing it a little bit earlier. But I do want to just thank staff on the fire district side and the city of Lakeport side for all the work they do, especially when it comes to fires and fire hazards.
And who knew a propane tank could go flying through a neighborhood?
It's bizarre.
That alone is good community outreach of here's why you need to evacuate when we tell you to. So lucky no one got hurt.
Yes.
I would also add to that, there's numerous videos on Facebook, and one of them was several of them were taken from the cars that were stopped right before that explosion, and that explosion happened, and they don't turn off their mics, so they're recording, and they're the expletives and get the F out of here, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they're turning around in the middle of the freeway, trying to get out of there when they were actually trying to get either through there or to there. That's you give them that level of excitement, and maybe it encourages people to go the other way. I would like to, and I don't encourage explosions on every fire, believe me. But I would like to also say that on top of the group effort, that it can't happen. None of these fires happened without bringing in and receiving mutual aid, and us going out for mutual aid and getting each other's backs and helping one another. And it certainly, the fire in Scotts Valley drove some decision making on my build out for the command rig to make sure that we ensured communications and those kind of things, and why the chiefs are working on grants to bring in Starlink, and it's and why we back each other up, and they come into my jurisdiction and I go to theirs to for those command experience and to bring that to the table, and assistance just to take that off. But to the city's credit, one of the things that happened this year, we did not have folks available to do abatement inspections, and the city stepped up and took over those abatement inspections. Bethany Moss, and as much as I would love to take credit for any of that, the notices up there were only for the district. That didn't include what happened on the city side of things, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that to the table and make council aware of what actually took place with that. Also, not only are we trying to figure out how to upstaff for fire inspections, fire marshal duties, we're trying to figure out how to work together to make sure our hydrants, both in the city and out into the county, are properly maintained. and that we're able to locate those as well. We have the proper clearances, et cetera, et cetera. I'm also trying to review what we can do to strengthen and bolster our ordinance with the fire district and add more teeth to it to go out and start nailing these folks as well for not only mowing when they have 3-foot high grass and not having water and taking into consideration their neighbors and what they may be doing, but also catching them beforehand and getting the abatements done and addressed. And we have repeat offenders. We have some that they just count on the clock reset and that we're not going to get to them before the end of the year, and the clock resets and we have to start all over again. So we're working on figuring out how do we do that. I know that Kevin's trying to work inside with your sets of ordinances, and I know we're going to be working with the district attorney and trying to figure out what we can do with our ordinances to strengthen those. It's not going to happen overnight, and I don't want to be a broken record, but I am a one-person show as far as I don't have a number two. I have my captains that are on shift and responsible for making sure the shift happens literally, and keeping track of those folks and training and responding to calls. So there's only so much that can go downhill until we get some additional staff brought onto our department. So thank you to the city. Thank you to staff. Really want to thank Bethany again for what she's done. And we do work very, very closely together. In fact, we were in communications today with several businesses trying to get those doors open or keep them open because we're dealing with some deadlines and some permit issues. So that line of communications is absolutely critical. That level of communications or cooperation is absolutely critical. And truly appreciate everything with city staff. And you guys have a phenomenal staff all the way around, and I do appreciate what they bring and answering the phone and coming out in the middle of the night and whatever it takes. They're there, and they've been awesome partners to work with. And I hope we're the same backwards. So going back the other way. But thank you very much.
Thank you. So I have a comment on this item that it is frustrating to think that the fires are in one sense avoidable. I suppose that is human error, but it is frustrating to know that if people acted a bit differently, the fire would not have occurred. I like the idea of considering an earlier abatement time, and I think it seems clear that it's going to take a community effort, given the state, given the realities that we're working with state mandates, et cetera, et cetera. I read a Cal Cities article that pointed out that in 2011 there were a total of 5 acres in an unincorporated area in Lake County that had the very high severity designation. And at this time, with the new map, it's over 10,000. So this is the difference that has occurred over time. And just responding to that is going to take some creative thinking and some community efforts. That's that. Councilmember Price, did you have any comments? Okay.
No
Well,
comment.
thank you. So this item did not appear to have a motion of any sort. I think it was just to receive the report. And thank you for all of that information. So the next item on the city manager's council business is the OES mutual aid agreement. Adopt the resolution and authorize the city manager to sign the Lake County operational area agreement.
I just want it noted that I did not pay Chief Wrights to make that your transition into this item here about the importance of regional cooperation. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
I still want my receipt for my $10.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is this operational area agreement that's before you this evening is it's nothing. It's not. It's kind of a formalization of an existing process that we already are doing and conducting together with our regional partners. In particular, the county OES. So this agreement kind of formalizes that strong partnership and coordination. between us, the county, the city of Clear Lake, and various special districts to improve emergency management effects across the jurisdiction. So it's a formalized framework, but it's something that we've already been in practice doing. We share resources on these emergencies. It doesn't take an emergency. It doesn't take much more than a small emergency to quickly move out of the capacity that we are able to handle just solely on our own here at the city. And then that goes both ways. We're there for our regional partners when their emergencies grow beyond the capacity that goes in there. So the other thing that this does is it makes sure that we are using all the right and proper language that Cal OES or FEMA wants us to use in order to kind of make sure that as much of the time and resources that we do put into these emergencies is reimbursable. And that goes the other way too. We want to make sure that the partners who do respond to our emergencies are able to streamline that process where they're able to recoup the costs that they have in regards to servicing us during those emergencies. And then we likewise, want to see that process in turn when we are. So it just kind of keeps those pieces going. But really, we have a very good partnership with our emergency service providers. This really is just sort of documenting that more in a more formal process. You'll recall we did a very similar agreement probably 2 years ago with the other cities in Mendocino County and Lake County together to make it easier to share our resources in emergencies as well. And we kind of use that this template in establishing this one as well. So certainly able to answer any questions. Ron Ladd is also very much a part of the process in coordination with Cal OES. So anything that I can't answer, I'm sure that he can.
Great. Do any council members have any questions? No. Thank you. All right, we'll open it up to public comments. Anybody want to speak on this issue? No one in the room? Any hands raised online? No?
No hands raised online.
Great. We'll bring it back to council for comment and discussion. Or a motion. I don't see a motion actually articulated. I suppose it's
under option.
Yeah, I was just gonna.
Oh, is it in?
Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution and authorize the city manager to sign the Lake County Operational Area Agreement.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next item is that is from the Administrative Services Director, and it is regarding the cost of living adjustment budget policy. The council is being asked to approve the personnel cost budgeting policy. Kelly Buendia.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This item for your consideration is, as was stated, to approve the personnel cost budgeting policy. The purpose of the policy is to establish a structured and transparent method for estimating cost of living adjustments as part of our annual budget process. Basically, this would be just to account for personnel, a little bit of an increase in personnel costs when there's not an MOU adopted. So an MOU would dictate there's a 4% COLA next year or 2% or 3%, and that's what the number would be included in the budget among other increases. This was just a way of budgeting that is a placeholder until negotiations can take place. Often those COLAs get adopted well after the budget process. So how the policy would work is that the finance director would use the West Region Consumer Price Index as a gauge from the prior year. So like right now, that would be for 2024, what was it? And that number would be adopted. It would be capped at 4%. If for some reason it was negative, there could be a zero cost of living increase budgeted for that year. But again, this is just a budgeting tool. It is not meant to be the final COLA, or it doesn't authorize a COLA per se. It just is to put an estimate in the budget. So, but because we do sometimes from our bargaining units get asked, how much did you budget for us this year? Well, we need to be able to tell them what's in there. But we also don't, we don't want to give away a bargaining position too. So there's that that negotiation process still needs to happen, but we want transparency as well, about what's in the draft budget. So, that's what's in the policy, before you. We did have a limited discussion with our management bargaining unit just to make sure that this made sense. And kind of tried to clear up some of the things that weren't as clear. And I think we have a good policy before you. This was supposed to be Nick Walker's agenda item. Since it was my big idea, he gave it back to me on his way out the door. Anyway, so that's before you is the request to approve this policy.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council?
So Kelly, let's say we have a 4% CPI or whatever for 3 years, and you're saying we have total transparency. And then we go into benefits and salaries negotiations, and it's transparent, and everybody knows it's like 4%, 4%, 4%. And then we go into new negotiations. Isn't that that kind of transparency almost like put us between a rock and a hard place about, I mean, yeah, we may have budgeted, but, or is that we're going to be held to at least that when they see, well, when I'm 4%, 4%, 4%, and you only been giving us 3, 2, and 2, and now we want, 6, 5, and 6 or whatever. Isn't that kind of a possibility?
So if I understand your question, you're asking if the CPI said 4%, but we really couldn't afford 4%? Is that what you're?
What I'm asking is when it's evident, self-evident through transparency, and they see it year after year after year, and then we go into salaries and budget talks with a group of the city, wouldn't that put us kind of in a disadvantageous position? I mean, we're almost held like, well, you're not going to give us what the costs were? I mean,
I think the city manager does have the option to budget less. So if, for example, I don't think this is going to happen very often, first of all, but if, for example, the CPI was 4%, it was really high, it was, kind of at its max. But our market research was showing that our employees were already way overpaid. Like they're like I said,
yeah, I'm sure
this
they
ain't
are.
gonna happen. This is fictional. But then the city manager would probably be recommending to the city council a lower COLA or no COLA for that year. And we would explain that to the bargaining units in negotiations.
I think that, what you're talking about, Councilmember Parlett, I mean, yes, it does kind of, it puts that at, will it be used against us? I'm sure it will. But at the same time, I think it also, it'll also show us that it does take away some of the fighting about what cost index to use. Too, which is always, a feature of the discussions. Well, this one says this and this one says that. But there is room in the policy, where we can state, well, because of these circumstances, we are not budgeting, or we're budgeting less because of this. So it does give us room. I think there's just a responsibility on management staff, particularly myself, to articulate that, okay, cost of living says 3%, but here's why we're budgeting less because of, budget factors A, B, and C. And it does allow us an opportunity to document those pieces. We're seeing this develop as more of a kind of best practice by other entities. It's kind of an outcome of the kind of wave of cost of living that we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years. And then you get entities that come in and say, well, our cost of living shows that we need, X number that's way off the chart. So it's really about, it really is a budgeting tool and only a budgeting tool. But it's also kind of about kind of creating a uniform language to start with as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, we open up for public comment on this item. No one in the room, anyone on the line with hands raised?
No hands raised online.
All right, coming back to council for more discussion or comment.
Madam Mayor, if there's nothing further, I'll move to approve the personnel cost budgeting policy.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. All right. Next item is put on by the Utilities Director. It regards a lift station pump procurement. The council is being asked to authorize the city manager to sign a purchase order for the procurement of a HOMA, H-O-M-A, pump model AMS 644-300 from Thomas and Associates in the amount of $27,925. Utilities Director Paul Harris.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm before you to seek approval to purchase a replacement pump for our Linda Lane lift station. The city of Lakeport utilizes 8 sewer lift stations to transfer sewer from the collection system to the wastewater treatment plant. Each station is equipped with 2 pumps for redundancy in case of a pump failure. In addition, we also maintain a backup pump for immediate replacement if a pump should fail. This level of redundancy is critical in preventing sanitary sewer overflows. Lift station failures usually contribute to the largest spills due to the volumes associated with operation if a failure occurs. Recently, an existing Flight 47 horsepower pump failed at our Linda Lane lift station. It was promptly replaced with a new pump from our backup inventory. We then delivered the failed pump to Industrial Electric Motors to conduct an evaluation for repair. They provided a quote for $47,763 to refurbish the pump. We estimate this pump to have a current service life of 18 years to date. A brand new flight pump would exceed this cost. It would be well over $50,000. We simultaneously sought out quotes to replace this pump with a new equivalent Homa brand. We received quotes from Ryan Process for the amount of $30,028 and Thomas Associates for $27,925, respectively. Appropriations were approved for the purchase of a lift station pump for this current fiscal year in the amount of $30,000 from the sewer fund. With that said, we'd like to proceed with the purchase of a new Homa pump from Thomas and Associates in the amount of $27,925.
Thank you. Questions from council?
Paul, didn't you buy some Homa pumps recently and we had the same experience that they were greatly reduced and you've had a positive experience with them?
Yes, correct. October of 2023, we purchased a Homa pump. And we've been happy with its performance. And that was based on a Homa pump that was installed at Linda Lane, and I believe it was 2012, and it's been running ever since. So they have a good track record, and they're about half the cost. So
and they're cheaper than repairing one by about $10,000.
yeah, exactly.
Why are they so much cheaper? I just don't. get that.
Flight has they're a very good brand. They're very reliable.
Okay.
But you pay the price for
You
that.
can get 2 for 1.
And yeah, essentially that's what it is. And Homa it's kind of like becoming the new industry standard because Flight is so expensive. Yeah,
Early adopter.
even the repair kit, like like indicated in here, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
So
One quick question, if I may. Not about this pump in particular, but just the Linda Lane, that's the final stretch. Does this pump get more use than the other pumps? Is there a reason that we should be going with the cheaper one? Because it seems like this area is where it all funnels in, right? Is that correct?
yeah, you'd be correct that this handles 100% of the city's sewer. But it's equal to Lariku, our other lift station that heads toward Linda Lane. And the hours on the pump is equivalent to other lift stations. So although it moves more volume, being a 45 horsepower pump, it's still doing the same workload as some of the other lift stations.
Okay, that makes
So-
the same hours, just
Yeah,
more load.
exactly.
Okay.
And that's why it's critical to have the backup inventory, so we have one to replace it in the event of a failure.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Put it to the test.
Yeah.
Okay, no more questions from council, then no, we were already back to comments and conversation, correct? We are.
Oh, no, I don't think we asked for public comment yet.
Thank you. I'm getting a little mixed up, getting late here. All right, public comment on this item. No one in the room, anyone online, Mel? No?
No hands raised online.
Thank you. Now we bring it back for comments and discussion or a motion.
Well, the redundancy is absolutely essential because we talked in a prior meeting about the hellacious fines that we get if we don't have redundancy. And so I think this is kind of like something that's like a no-brainer. So
I think I'll just say yay for Homa, right? I mean, those are crazy numbers.
2 for 1.
Yeah.
Right. You can do it twice as often if needed.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to sign a purchase order for the procurement of a Homa pump model AMS 644-300 from Thomas and Associates in the amount of $27,925.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item is from Public Works Director Ron Ladd. It's a contract amendment. The city council is being asked to approve and authorize the city manager to execute amendment. Yes, that's the right word. Amendment 3 to the professional services agreement with Dawkin Engineering for the Forbes Creek Headwall Repair Project in the amount of $26,773.30.
Thank you, Mayor Costa and council. The staff report details some more of the history that I've covered with council and given updates to a couple times, and even gave a small update on the status of these ER projects during the recent road report. The history kind of details the frustrations and the length of time it takes to navigate the federal right-of-way and environmental processes, and spells out kind of the reason it's taken us so long to get to this point. Amendment 3, as Mayor Costa mentioned, will cover the additional support needed from Dawkin Engineering to properly acquire the additional right-of-way for the Forbes Creek headwall repair, which is right here on Main Street across from Soper Reese. We're happy to say that the Hartley Street project is slightly further along than this one, but we're making progress. I mean, while it's taken a long time to get here, we're happy that we're to this point. We submitted to Caltrans this request for the increased right-of-way April 16th, 2024. We've just received approval of the first step of the two-step review process. The good news is once you get that first step overcome, we don't anticipate any problems with the second half of that approval. And this amendment will be covered under FHWA at 88.53%, which leaves us about 11.5% match, a little bit under 11.5% match. And so it's been a long process to get here, but we keep, as Doug Greider used to say all the time, shoving this rock up the hill to try to get these projects finally to construction. And so would like to see the amendment approved by council.
Never give up. Questions from council?
This is still part of planning and making the project move forward. So I don't want to jump ahead too far here, but do we have plans when this is able to move forward to fund these repairs? Is that done through FEMA?
It's through the Federal Highway Administration, and we are hoping that construction would be in fiscal year 26, 27 on these projects.
But it is reliant on federal funds,
It is.
and we don't have that allocated yet.
We do not have that allocated yet, but we don't anticipate a hiccup in the construction funding, but
You never know.
we're not there in the
Okay.
process yet.
Thank you.
So it's a 6-year project.
Mhm.
I would,
Emergency reserve.
I mean, an interesting fact in the staff report
Thought it
is
was
that the
park
support costs to acquire the right of way greatly, it's way more expensive for the support than it is for the actual acquisition of the right of way.
I have a question, and I wish I would have called and asked this earlier because I feel a little stupid asking it now, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So the 88.53% reimbursement ratio. So does the 26773.30 amount, does that represent the 11.47%, or is there going to be an 88.53% reimbursement ratio on the 26,000 amount?
Correct.
There will be an 88.53% reimbursement on the 26,700. Okay,
That's correct.
that feels a lot better.
Wasn't a dumb question. I asked the same thing.
All right. Just wanted to ask it privately. Okay, here we are. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we'll open it up for public comment. No one in the room. Mel, how about online?
No hands raised online.
Great, thank you. We'll bring it back for further discussion or comment by council or a motion.
If there's no discussion, Madam Mayor, I'll move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute Amendment 3 to the professional services agreement with Doken Engineering for the Forbes Creek Headwall Repair Project in the amount of $26,773.30.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so our next item is city council communications. And we can start with Community Development Director Joey Henowitz.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Chief Toby?
I'm happy to report out that with the help of Ron Ladd and Jim Kennedy, we took a delivery of the message and speed trailer yesterday morning. So we have that and are working on its first deployment, hopefully sometime next week.
Very
Great.
exciting.
Good
What a
news.
tip.
We'll let you know. Invite you out. You can change the
ready.
message.
You'll find out with your first ticket.
It does come with testing certification papers. so-
Oh, sign me up.
All right, Utilities Director Paul Harris.
I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. Administrative Services Director Kelly Buendia.
No report, thank you.
Thank you. I have these written down. My brain is going out. But Public Works Director Ron Ladd.
Thank you, Mayor Costa. I have nothing to report.
Thank you. And GIS, I wrote yours down, Mel. GIS, I got it wrong though. System Asset Manager?
GIS Asset Management.
Asset
Technician.
Manager. Mel, Olea, whatever. Mel, you got anything?
Time.
That guy works.
Got
great.
anything, Mel?
I want to report, it feels good to be back.
Woo! Hey,
But
to have
do
you.
dearly miss Nick.
Yeah.
He sees this later. So,
Thank you.
thank
All
you.
right. Here we go. City Attorney Mackenzie Anderson, correct?
Assistant City Attorney.
Oh, thank you.
Nothing to report, thank you.
All right. City Manager Kevin Ingram.
The only thing I had was, noting the local responsibility area mapping coming down. We'll continue to have messaging, but I think I covered most of that in previous items. So no additional report.
Thank you. Councilmember Matina.
No report tonight.
Pro Tem Disney.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that last month I was voted the chair of the LCRA, the Recreation Agency.
Excellent.
So be pushing for more recreation opportunities here in the city. My only other thing to report is the Clean Water Program meets this Thursday. And working with them to get some funding or resources to assist the Clear Lake High Environmental Impact Club with a cleanup.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very cool. Councilmember Parlett.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that once again, we have Stacy Mattina is going to be leading ACP and LTA again. So those meetings, as much as I love them, I'll love them even more because she's going to continue to be at the helm, and I'm very grateful. Because we do have a couple new members and there's so much alphabet soup there. And she's one of the few people that can recite all of them. So if you need to know, ASIP or H,
No,
whatever,
that.
she knows them all.
Good to know. Councilmember Price.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
I think I just want to thank Pro Tem Disney for taking over a couple weeks ago when I was feeling I just gave up. I was just feeling sick and I was glad to stay home and I knew it would, you were so gracious. I called you up and you were like, sure thing, no problem. So thanks so much for that. Attended my first LCRA meeting. I'm really looking forward. That seems like a fun kind of an upbeat project to be on. So I'm looking forward to that committee meeting. And pretty soon we'll be back in the swing of the Risk Reduction Authority meetings and soon make my first appearance with the chamber. So we'll see how all that goes. More to report then. We have, I guess, the thing to mention now is that we will go into closed session. Do I read what those items are?
Just the titles or?
Just the
What I
title.
do, just the titles as, right, we have two items, public employee performance evaluation, government code 54957, and this involves the city manager. The second item, conference with labor negotiator, city negotiator Mackenzie Anderson, for the unrepresented employee, the city manager. And thank you. Do we have any public comment on the closed session items? There's no one in the room to comment. How about online, Mel?
No hands raised online.
All right, thank you. We will go into closed session now. Thank you. Hello, we are returning from closed session and we have no reportable action tonight. Meeting adjourned.